Chances are if you're watching this video, then you have, like me, spent countless hours on the internet trying to study John's signal chain, trying to achieve his tone. And you know that John's guitar sound is a very particular way of breaking up and reacting to his playing dynamics. And this is mainly due to the unique preamp section that's in this CE-1. It's always boosting his signal even in bypass mode. Dave Lee, John's former guitar tech, said that this was the most important piece of equipment in order to achieve his tone. And it really has to do with the unique gain structure that's controlled by this level knob. Now, the CE-1 alone isn't going to quite get you there when it comes to John's tone, and that's where the WH10 comes in. This pedal isn't true bypass either, and a lot of people have dismissed this as being a piece of crap because it really sucks your tone. But something special happens when you put this together with the CE-1. They just work really well together, and you kind of need to have both of these pedals if you want to get John's sound. One's really not going to sound good without the other. And then you're also going to want the DS2 for those distorted sounds. In terms of availability, it's pretty easy to get a DS2, even if you don't want to shell out the extra cash for a made in Japan version. The made in Taiwan DS2s sound very similar. They're a lot more affordable and pretty easy to find. Even the WH10, you have a few options. They're not as common as a DS2, but these have been reissued several times, so this isn't too hard to get your hands on either. The problem, if you want to sound like John pedal-wise, is probably going to be getting your hands on a CE-1. These things were made in 1976. It's the first proper foot pedal that Boss ever put out, so kind of hard to find in 2020, and if you do find one, they're ridiculously expensive. Even if you are lucky enough to own one of these, they're not very pedal board friendly. Okay, they have a huge footprint and this really bulky AC power cable. Luckily for you, I have a solution for all of that, and I'm happy to introduce to you the JFX JF-1 Preamp. Okay, the name is an obvious nod to John, but we also happen to share the same initials. Now, as you can probably already tell, I'm a bit of a pedal junkie. Over the last few years, I've been scouring Craigslist pretty much every day, making frequent trips to the guitar store to browse used pedals, and consuming an unhealthy amount of YouTube content. After spending so much time learning about and experimenting with different effects, the next logical step for me was to try and understand what was actually going on inside of these things. I had thought about trying to build my own pedals for a while, but it seemed pretty daunting, and I never felt like I really had the time. That all changed in March this year when the situation surrounding COVID-19 forced me to have to work from home. I had a lot more time to myself, and I decided it was time to give it a shot. The one thing that I always wanted to clone was the preamp section of my CE-1. I thought if I could get the same sound out of a smaller enclosure, with the standard 9-volt power supply, then maybe I could retire this monster from my board and would be free to experiment with more affordable chorus pedals and maybe even transition to a nice multi-effect for modulation. So after spending weeks trying to understand the schematic, searching all the forums and racking my brain trying to figure out how to clone this circuit and provide it with the proper power from the typical 9-volt adapter, I was able to fit the exact same preamp circuit using the same op amp as the original into this small Hammond 1590A enclosure and get the same bipolar 13-volt power needed from a standard 9-volt supply using a Texas Instruments LT1054 voltage converter. So just like the original, this has two outputs and a single level control, and it'll allow you to route any chorus pedal into your signal chain in a number of different ways. I've left out the foot switch to save space, and also, just to be true to the original, let the signal flow through the preamp all the time. I've also left out the high-low switch. The low mode of the original allows you to bypass the transistor stage, but it seems like John always used the pedal on the high mode, and to me that's what sounds best for getting his tone. I'm hoping that through building this preamp, I'll be able to connect with other fans and be able to provide a more affordable option to those of you who can't get their hands on an original CE-1 but still want that classic John tone. I plan on producing an initial run of approximately 30 of these, so please stay tuned for updates if you're interested in ordering one. Now I'm going to do an A-B comparison of these, but before I do that, I just want to clarify that this demo is only meant to compare these two preamps in terms of the guitar and pedal portion of John's signal chain. And I'm going to be recording them in mono plugged directly into my recording interface. So this isn't meant to show you exactly what these will sound like when played through an amp or 2 amps in stereo. This is obviously going to vary depending on what amp or what amps you're using and how you've set them up. I plan to cover how to get a stereo amp set up like John in a future video. Because I'm going to be comparing these preamps plugged directly into my recording interface, you may notice that the distorted tones sound a little unnatural, especially the tone coming from the wah pedal, but this is really just about comparing the two preamps, and hopefully it will show you that they sound pretty much identical. So for this demo, I'll be using my main guitar, which is an Olympic White Strat. The body is from a 2017 American Professional. Everything is stock, except I swapped the parchment pickguard for this mint green one, and I replaced the neck with this 2019 American Original 60s neck because I like the thicker profile. From my Strat, I'm going to be going into the made in Japan Boss DS2, into a NANO Big Muff Pi, then an MXR microamp, into my WH10, and this is a version 1 that I took, a version 1 circuit that I took out of the plastic enclosure and fitted into the metal enclosure of the first reissue. From the WH10, I'm going to go into this Boss LS2 line selector where I will have both preamps isolated in separate loops so I can route the signal through each of them independently and switch back and forth between them. The signal will come out of this LS2 into this Electro Harmonics Holy Grail Nano and then directly into my recording interface, which is a Steinberg UR44. Thanks for watching, and I hope you like the comparison.
Bye.